Listen, when I say I called it, I called it. Let's rewind the tape. I feel like them having this little video clip in here of Andre, saying, I want to be the president, having these political aspirations as a child. For some reason, I'm like, are they trying to set this up that he's going to run against the Kyle brother? Because that was one of my predictions, but I didn't know if he was going to even be able to if he doesn't live in Chucalissa. But technically right now he does live in Chucalissa because he's living in his uncle's house and he's the executor for the estate. So I guess technically he owns the estate. Hey y'all, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the tribe, and if you are returning to Fiercely V, welcome back. So happy to have you. We are back to do a review and recap of P-Valley. Today we are going to be doing season 2 episode 3, and let me tell you, I've been making predictions so far. So if you have not seen my first 2 P-Valley review and recap videos, make sure you check those out. They're in the P-Valley season 2 playlist on my channel. So definitely go take a look at those because I've been making a few predictions, and 2 of the predictions that I made, I feel like are gonna happen. And I'm just feeling very much like I knew it. It just feels good to be right, Of course, while you're here, if you're liking the content here at Fiercely V, definitely make sure that you give this video a thumbs up and stick around and check out the other videos and consider subscribing to the tribe so that you don't miss any more of my other uploads. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into P-Valley Season 2, Episode 3, which is titled The Dirty Dozen. So we not wasting no time. Started off with Roulette butt naked in the Paradise Room.
In the nude. Bucket naked.
She's in the Paradise Room doing a solo dance for this guy. She had a mask on and he's like, take your mask off. I want to see your face. I want to see your face. And so she takes her mask off and he's like,
oh, them is some fucking lips.
And I was like, ew. Anyway, so he proceeds to request certain services from her in the form of les slape tape in exchange for some money. And at first she's like saying, no, we can't do that. Uncle Clifford, rule number 4, we're not supposed to do XYZ. And eventually she's like, but I mean, for a brick, maybe. And he gives her a brick. And she proceeds the sloppiest, toppiest in the Paradise Room. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm not judging, I'm not judging nobody. When I was watching that scene, I was like, a brick? How much is a brick? And so I looked it up. Now, on Urban Dictionary, it said that a brick is $100,000. I don't think he gave her $100,000 in that Paradise Room. I feel like a brick means something different in the strip club world because I know that they'll like cash out your money in ones and it's like in the form of a brick. And so I don't know. I feel like a brick is maybe like $100 or something in a strip club. I don't know. If y'all know and you're watching this video, let me know. But when I looked on Urban Dictionary, it was like $100,000. And I'm like, first of all, for $100,000.
Bucket naked.
So anyway, after Roulette tops the young man off in the Paradise Room, all the girls are in the back in the locker room. They got their bags of money. They're counting cash or whatever. Of course, Roulette's bag of cash is hefty. She earned it. And Mercedes walks by and her bag of cash is looking a little skimp. And because Roulette has this, antagonizing spirit and just wants to antagonize Mercedes, she's like, oh, Mercedes, your bag is not half empty, it's half full. And of course, this makes Mercedes roll her eyes and she's like, mind the business that pays you, whatever. It's very clear that Roulette is just like, I'ma fuck with Mercedes. But that's like exactly what Mercedes did to Autumn Night when she came. So I'm just like, girl, you know, you get the energy that you put out. You know what I mean? You was a little antagonizing, little bully vibes when Autumn Night started, and now one of the new girls is doing that to you. And, you know, obviously Mercedes has all these other things going on. So, you know, and that regard, I feel bad for her, because it's like, girl, you got the shoulder issues, you shot the dude, your mama's trash, you got all this different stuff going on. So it's like, in that regard, I'm like, you know, the last thing she need is one of the new girls, like, you know, picking at her. But it's like, you was picking at the last new girl. So, I mean, what goes around comes around. It is what it is. So Mercedes goes to her gym space, and we see somebody in like a U-Haul truck, and they're moving boxes out of it. So it looks like her gym is shut down. You know, in the first episode, we saw that a lot of the girls, after the pandemic, their parents weren't going to be able to pay for them to keep doing the dance tournament classes and stuff like that. So it looks like her, you know, her gym is kind of like closed down at this point in time. She's pretty sad about it, but she's on the phone with the dude from season 1, who was basically the football coach, I believe. And he was basically telling her, like, you know, you could come to the city and I'll put you up in a nice condo, and you can just, you know, be my little side piece or whatever, you know, I'll pay you and this and that. And, you know, she wasn't really into it because he's married, and she was like, I don't really like the sound of that. But in this scene, you know, after, you know, her gym is not up and running, you know, she had way less money than the rest of the girls at the club the other night. So you could tell that she's just really like down on herself. And so she is reconsidering this offer. And so she's talking to him, and she's just like, you know, does the offer still stand or whatever? And, you know, I can imagine how it could feel like such a step backwards for her, because like in season 1, we see her about to do Mercedes' last dance. She's about to start up she's been saving all this money. She's about to open her dance studio. She's doing all this. And it's like, in an instant, all of that was taken away from her, between, you know, her mom stealing her money, the stuff that happened at Murder Night, all this stuff. And it's just like, for her to have to resort back to that, I can imagine that it probably feels like, dang, like, you know, I did not think that I was gonna have to do this. So I feel bad for her that she's even having to like go back and consider just being like a paid, you know, escort type vibes for this man who's married. Like, I know that it probably like hurts her pride that she's gonna be doing that. But, you know, she's talking on the phone with him, and she's like, you know, does the offer still stand? And he's like, yeah. While they're talking, she's like, you know, she wants to negotiate some terms or whatever. And one of the things that she negotiates is, she's like, your wife needs to be there. She needs to know what's going on. I need to be able to talk to her to make sure that she, you know, knows what's up and she's cool with it. And I'm like, yes, Mercedes, because listen, we close our legs to married men, okay? But if the wife is cool, you know, it is what it is. Get your money, sis. But I definitely appreciate her for being like, we need to make sure that this ain't no side piece thing that your wife don't know about, because I don't want no parts of that foolishness. So shout out to Mercedes for that. So at Pastor Patrice Woodbine's church, they have a drive up situation where people can come and get food boxes. So one of the ladies that works at the church, a car pulls up. It's a young girl, and she's like, can I get 2 boxes? One's for me, one's for my family, and one's for our neighbors. And the lady is like, you know, you're not supposed to get 2, you know, let me ask Pastor Woodbine or whatever. And the girl's like, no, don't worry about it. But the lady calls Pastor Patrice Woodbine over anyway. And then once Pastor Woodbine gets over there, we realize that the girl, she immediately is like, oh my God, this is my granddaughter. It's Terica. It's Mercedes' daughter. And if you don't remember from season 1, basically Mercedes was messing with an older man who was married when she was about 15. She gets knocked up. Her mom basically makes her give the baby to the dad and his wife, and that's who raised her daughter Terica. And so in season 1, we got a lot of that dynamic between between Mercedes and Terica and the stepmom that was raising her, and how, you know, it was just alluded to that, like, oh, you're a stripper, you're going to be a bad influence on Terica, so I don't want you in her life, and this, that, and the other. So we got a lot of that dynamic in season 1, but basically it seems like things ain't going too well at home if Terica is at the drive-through thing getting food boxes, you know, and stuff, and she trying to get 2 of them. And so basically, you know, her grandmother comes over there and she's like, what are you doing here, you know, and what's going on, and where's your mama, and this, that, and the third. And she's basically just like, oh, she's at home taking a nap. And, you know, Pastor Patrice Woodbine is like, at home taking a nap? Like, girl, that don't sound right. And you can see that she's suspicious, but you know, she just kind of side eyes the situation when Terica drives off. So we get to a scene where we see a young Caucasian lady. She's working in a convenience store, and we see a bunch of men that are in the store shopping. They have bandanas covering their faces. Of course, it's still COVID, so you know, people was wearing face masks. I guess that's what they're using as a face mask. So they got bandanas covering their faces, and they're roaming around the store, and she's standing behind the counter, child stressed. Sis got her finger on the button, and she was just about to push it, but then Keyshawn comes out the bathroom, and once she sees that there's like a woman with them, and she takes her finger off the button. And you know, I know this was supposed to represent like, oh, this white woman sees these black men in the store and automatically thinks they're up to no good, but I mean, they did have bandanas on their faces, like, so listen, if I'm in a store and a whole bunch of dudes come in and they got bandanas on their faces, like, come on. Like, I think any normal person would be like, is this some gang stuff? Like, what's going on? So, I mean, I get what they were trying to do. I guess they were like trying to make it seem like, oh, this white woman sees these black men in the store, automatically thinks something is up. But I'm just kind of like, y'all have like gang looking bandanas on y'all's faces. Like, but anyway, Keyshawn comes out the bathroom, and that puts the woman at ease or whatever. She goes ahead and rings them up. The dudes, of course, they're on the Dirty Dozens tour, so they're just at the store stopping to get some stuff, and then they go out to the parking lot. They're taking pictures and doing a little photo shoot on top of the hearse/tour bus, child, and you know, posting them to Instagram. And then we see them kind of like, you know, documenting the tour stuff on social media. And I thought this scene was very interesting because we see like how, you know, in the actual scene, we see that they're literally like in the hood at some ragged looking convenience store in a hearse, but when they snap these photos, they make them look so like glamorous and luxurious. And I'm just like, that is literally how social media is. Like, people just be doing ordinary or basic stuff. But, you know, when you look at these social media feeds, it look like people are living these extravagant, luxurious lives, and they just be regular. So I liked the way they like contrasted that and showed us like them taking the pictures, standing on the hearse with the crusty convenience store behind them, versus what it looked like on the social media feed. I thought that was really interesting. So Uncle Clifford and Haley are in the back office of the Pynk, and they're looking at Uncle Clifford is scrolling Instagram, looking at the tour pictures from the Dirty Dozens tour. So he's just kind of, you know, scrolling through or whatever. And so Uncle Clifford and Haley are basically just talking about the whole, you know, situation that happened at the grand reopening of the Pynk. And, you know, Uncle Clifford is basically blaming Haley, and Uncle Clifford is like, it's your fault that all this even happened because we wasn't ready. And I told you we wasn't ready, and you insisted on, you know, moving the reopening up anyway. But hey y'all, so editing this video, I realized there's an important piece to this scene that I forgot to explain. So basically, once Uncle Clifford tries to say, you know, it's your fault that everything went down the way it did because we weren't ready, Haley is like, what? So you saying it's all my fault? At that point, Uncle Clifford throws it back to her and it's like, well, you know, it's 85% your fault because Haley owns 85% of the club. And so then Uncle Clifford goes on to say, but I mean, it can be 68% your fault instead. And basically what's happening is Uncle Clifford is basically trying to negotiate the ownership of the Pynk, because right now it's Haley owning 85% and Uncle Clifford owning the rest. So basically they have a little back and forth negotiation thing, and they end up settling on Haley having 69% ownership and then Uncle Clifford having the rest. So I forgot to mention that when I first recorded, so I just wanted to add that in because that's actually a really important thing that happened in this conversation. All right, back to your regularly scheduled programming. So then they go on to talk about, well, who's going to headline tonight. Haley is like, let's put Whisper and Roulette up there to headline. Uncle Clifford is hesitant at first. Uncle Clifford is like, I don't know, Mercedes is going to be mad, and, how can we just replace her like that? And Haley is like, anybody can be replaced. And so they talk about the DJ situation. Like I said, they've been using big LCDs. They ain't had a DJ because DJ Never Scared is in Atlanta, child working with Meg Thee Stallion. And so they're talking about the DJ situation, and Big Bone is nearby, and she's like, well, I could DJ, I could do it. And at first Uncle Clifford is like a little hesitant, but then Haley is like, I mean, what do we have to lose? Like, we've been using big LCDs. So they're going to go ahead and let Big Bone try her hand at DJing. So it's Sunday. We see the pastor of the church that Pastor Woodbine used to attend, where they wouldn't let her really preach for real because she was a woman, and that's why she left and started her own. So we see the pastor of that church. It looks like they're having services outside, and woo, not me having to do another voiceover. Okay, so I wanted to make a correction on this part. I said that they were at church service, but that is actually not true. It's actually a picnic for all of the pastors in Chucalissa. So I'm going to keep saying that the pastor is talking to his congregation. What he's actually doing is talking to all the pastors in Chucalissa so that they can talk to their individual congregation. So yeah, just disregard me saying the wrong thing for this entire snippet of the video. Okay, bye. And we see that the interim mayor, Wayne Kyle, has come to visit the congregation. Basically, he's there to essentially talk them into voting on the referendum so that the casino can come to Chucalissa. So, politicians be doing this. I remember when I was still going to church several years ago. This was probably like in 2012, maybe 2011, somewhere around there. There was a politician in Memphis who had came to our church, and I was just looking at this lady and her family feeling so out of place because this particular politician, it was a white lady, and my church was fully a black church, Kojic, and I'm just sitting here watching this lady and her family sitting in this church, and I'm just like, so y'all just making y'all's rounds trying to get black folks to vote for y'all? Like, do y'all even really care about us? Like, it was such a that experience, it was just so like, the way that they use the Christian community in that way is just, it's gross to me, because it's like, you ain't never been to this church before. Do you even go to church? So anyway, Wayne Kyle is there. He's basically like trying to influence that congregation to vote so that the casino can come to Chucalissa. And then Patrice Woodbine shows up to interrupt the service, and she's walking through the crowd and she's telling them like, they trying to turn Chucalissa to Sodom and Gomorrah. We need to say no on the referendum that the casino can't come here because they're going to turn this to Sodom and Gomorrah, and we don't need that. And she's going back and forth with Wayne Kyle about the referendum, and she's like walking through the crowd giving a whole speech about it, and she's like, y'all trust these white people too much and da-da-da. And listen, let me say, I had a prediction that Patrice Woodbine might be in the running for interim mayor, and this scene is giving very much that. And she was very like charismatically walking through the crowd, telling people, giving her whole little spiel, whatever. And I was like, she gonna run. She gonna be on the ballot. So we get a little montage of some of the performances of the Dirty Dozens tour. We see Big Frida in New Orleans opening up for Lil Murda, and then we see his performance. We see Keyshawn on stage doing her thing and everything, and then we see some shots from like them in their like hotel rooms, shooting footage in their hotel rooms. They're staying in very, basic like motels, but of course, kind of like the earlier scene where they was snapping up at the convenience store, like they're taking these, you know, glamorized pictures in these like very like rundown motel rooms, and they're just kind of like doing it up for the gram basically. And so they're in one of the motel rooms, and there's some like chocolate covered strawberries there. And so Rome had like snapped up a picture or a video, I can't really remember, that basically it was Keyshawn and Lil Murda was in the background, and it was very suggestive. And he's showing her the picture, and she's like, what, you already posted that? And you could tell she's nervous, and he immediately is like, girl, yo baby daddy ain't gonna be following me on Instagram, he not gonna see this. And you know, she's very hesitant still, but she's just like, you know, okay, you know, I guess it's okay, you know, but you could tell she's very hesitant. Listen, this is a man that literally was tracking her phone to where he knew where she was going when she went to the dollar store, down to the second, minute, and hour. Like, why wouldn't he follow you so that he can see what's going on the tour? He probably followed all y'all on social media so he could literally stalk all of y'all's pages and be able to see from every angle what the hell is going on this tour. Like, why? We know the lengths of crazy that this man is. I'm just not understanding why the assumption is that, oh no, he probably doesn't follow you. Like, girl, he probably does, and he's definitely going to see that. Not only that, but like, people share stuff on social media. If he's like searching up her name or her mentions or whatever, like, it's going to be easy to find this stuff. So I'm just like, girl, you taking so many liberties as if you don't have to go back home to this crazy ass man when this is all over. So Mercedes goes into the city to see the condo that Coach has gotten decked out for her. And so as she pulls up to this nice, you know, beautiful glass high-rise condo, Terica, her daughter, calls her, and she's just like chatting and like, you know, what are you doing? Terica is asking her like, when is the dance team going to be back up and running? And, you know, Mercedes is just basically like, you know, I don't know. And so she gets off the phone with Terica. She goes into the condo. She's just looking around. It's decked out. It's beautiful, gorgeous. And, you know, there's like a bottle of champagne waiting for her. And she's just looking around. And as she's in there looking around, Coach's wife, Farrah, shows up. They have a little back and forth. You can tell that Farrah is kind of like, you know, she's throwing a little bit of shade. She's giving a little bit of side eye. It's very clear that, like, even though she obviously is like, has signed on to this situation because she's there to like work out the details of the agreement, you could tell that she's like not very happy about it. And she's like giving major side eye. And this is one of the things that I think about a lot of times when people online are having these conversations about quote unquote high value men and men who are high earners and this, that, and the third. And one of the main things that I see online when these men are having these conversations is that there's this idea that if a man is like very well off, then he should just be allowed to cheat. And the woman that he's with should just be okay with it. That is what comes with it. And it's always so interesting to me how it's like the type of woman that is gonna be okay with her husband having a whole weekend side piece that he done put up in a high-rise condo and this, that, and the third. There is a trade-off for a woman being okay with that. The trade-off is, I'm gonna be okay with this in exchange for you providing me with a certain type of lifestyle. Men be so concerned about finding women who are looking for true love and monogamy, but they know they don't want true love and monogamy. If you know that you don't want monogamy for the rest of your life, then find a woman who is okay with that. Stop looking for women who you know want true love and monogamy and then trying to turn them into somebody that's okay with stuff like this. Like, there are women who are already okay with stuff like this, but y'all are so busy calling them gold diggers and calling them whatever. And that's the perfect woman for you. That's who you need. Date the gold diggers. they're the ones who are going to fit perfectly into that lifestyle that y'all want to lead. So back on the Dirty Dozens tour, they're in Memphis, Tennessee, and basically it's after a performance, they're in a club, they're kind of chilling, and we see, remember in the first episode, the dude that drove past and was like looking in the backseat and was like looking hella sketch. He walks in. Immediately, Big Teak, the bodyguard who just got out of prison, is side-eyeing him. The other friend, Wody, is like, yeah, they got some beef, you know, I don't be in that gang mess. That's some gang stuff between them or whatever. So it's alluded to that there's some beef between Big Teak and Shady Backseat Dude. That's what I'm gonna call him, because I don't know if we ever got his name, but Shady Backseat Dude is his name. And so Shady Backseat Dude, him and some of his boys come over there, and there's some tension or whatever, but ultimately he's just like, nah, we cool, everybody's cool, like whatever beef, like it ain't no beef, like, you know, we good. And so he's like dapping everybody up, and they're just standing over there chit-chatting or whatever. Now the dude with the dreads who was driving the car in the first episode, he's just talking to Rome. He's like, yeah, so you manage Little Murder, like that's what's up. And Rome is like, nah, I don't manage Little Murder, like no, I manage Keyshawn, like that's who I manage, like she's a real superstar, da 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 da. And the dude with the dreads is like, dang, you know, she's so fine, you know, just like Lil Murder, to keep a little baddie with him or whatever. He clearly thinks that like Lil Murder and Keyshawn have something going on. But Shady Backseat Dude is like, nah, that ain't his type. When he come out with his new song called Trade Tales, then I know something. And I was like, what is this dynamic? What is this dynamic? Because if you're not aware, I think a trade is basically like, I'll try to insert like the definition in this video when I'm editing. But anyway, when Shady Backseat Dude says that, I'm like, so you basically know that Lil Murder is down low, but how do you know that? Either way, Shady Backseat Dude definitely knows the truth about Lil Murder, and he's throwing some real shade. So it's making me very nervous, because I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that you can't, like, it could be very dangerous for Lil Murder going to these tours in these hood spots with all these hood men with fragile masculinity, and that type of thing come out. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could literally be dangerous for him. So I'm just kind of like, I don't like the fact that he just like threw that shade. But when he said that, Rome kind of side-eyed him. It's not looking good for Lil Murder being able to, you know, not have his business out there in the streets. So Mercedes is in the condo talking to Coach's wife. They're just kind of having a little back and forth. The wife is like, look, you know, I'm nervous. This is my first time doing this. She's like, I ain't never met one of the hoes before. And Mercedes is like, wait a minute. Like, I ain't no hoe like that. You going a little bit too far. But then the wife is like, girl, you getting $10K a weekend and a condo to smash my husband. What do you call it? And I'm just like, whoa. Whoa.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
10K a weekend? Am I in the wrong? But anyway, they're just kind of, you know, joking about that. They have a little moment or whatever. The wife is basically like, you know, well, you know, let me ask you, like, why did you require, you know, that I consent to this or that I give my okay to this? And Mercedes like, because I have integrity. Come on. We love a little integrity. And so, you know, they're kind of having a moment and they're having this little back and forth or whatever. And I liked it. At least this way, everybody involved is agreeing to it, knowing with like full knowledge of what is going on, like rather than just doing some sneaky shit behind your wife's back. This is the responsible way to do something like this if you just know that you want to smash other people. So Coach ends up coming in while they're talking to each other, and he's basically just like, you know, show us the Mercedes experience. I want my wife to see, you know, the Mercedes experience. And off top, I'm like, Coach, I see what you're doing. You trying to get something jumped off up in here. So basically, you know, the wife is like, no, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna let y'all have it. And the husband's like, no, stay. Mercedes, show us the Mercedes experience. And I'm just like, Men always trying to get both in the. So Mercedes, you know, she turns on the music on her phone, and there's a pole in the condo, and she's dancing. It's a very like child sensual, okay? Like the wife is watching her, and clearly the wife is mesmerized by her. And I'm just like, I see what you did, coach. You set this up nicely. You ain't slick. And so the wife is watching. She is mesmerized by Mercedes, and she's clearly getting turned on. Mercedes is dancing. While she's dancing, she's playing the music on her phone, and her phone starts ringing. It's the ringtone of her daughter. So the first time, she just kind of goes to the phone and shuts it off. And then continues to dance, and then she's dancing some more, and then it rings again, and it's her daughter's ringtone, and she shuts it off. And she shuts it off again. She continues dancing. Mercedes goes over to Coach, and she starts giving him a little lap dance situation. And then she look over, boom, wife is butt naked.
Where your clothes at?
Listen, one thing I know about a man, if he got a woman over here and a woman over there, he gonna try to have them both right here. So we switch over to a scene of Andre. He's on the phone with his wife. His wife is basically like, you know, when are you coming back home? And she tells him that her dad actually has a job for him. And he's like, no, I can't come back yet. I need a little bit more time. You know, they pushed the reading of the will back, so I'm gonna be here for a little bit longer. So then we go back to this threesome scene, baby. The threesome is fully underway with Coach and Mercedes and his wife Farrah. They doing their thing or whatever. The music is still on, playing on Mercedes' phone, and once again it starts ringing. It's her daughter Terica's ringtone. So this time she actually gets up and goes to answer the phone, and when she answers it, it's not Terica, it's the sheriff. It's one of the sheriffs, the black one. And he's basically like, you know, I got Terica pulled over. She's driving underage or whatever. And it's her stepmom's car. And the stepmom is passed out in the back seat. And the sheriff is like, you know, you could smell the liquor radiating off of her. And the sheriff is basically like, I can't let her drive. You need to come and get her right now. And so Mercedes ends up having to leave the threesome situation to go get Terica. So we back on the Dirty Dozens tour. It's after a performance, and they're getting back into the tour bus, and a crowd of people just kind of swarming the car. A whole bunch of women trying to get close to Lil Murda, and he's just kind of like trying to hurry up and get in the car. And so one of the women is just being super aggressive. She's trying to get his attention, calling his name, and he gets in the car while she's just like calling his name, and shady backseat dude ends up walking up on her. He grabs her arm. He's like, hey, can I talk to you? And I'm just like, first of all, you thought this was the moment to try to holler? Like, while she's being thirsty for another man, you thought this is your prime opportunity to try to holler. Okay. So anyway, he grabs her arm. He's like, hey, can I talk to you? And she like snatches it away from him, and that pisses him off because he's clearly one of them dudes that can't take rejection. So he goes off. He's like, F you, girl. And so Big Teak is standing right there, and he's like, hold up, you know, don't disrespect her. Like, you doing too much right now. And shady backseat dude just turns to the girl and is like, listen, B, you just not his type. Now, mind you, a few scenes ago, he was making the little, you know, trade reference in regards to Lil Murda's sexuality. So now he's telling this groupie, like, you know, don't worry, you just not his type. So I'm just like, you really gonna like weaponize this? Like, that's messed up. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, why do you care? So he says this to the girl. As soon as he says this, boom, Big Teak steals on him. They rolling around fighting. Everybody start tussling. And because they're in Memphis, Tennessee, somebody pulls out a gun and starts shooting. And Big Teak ends up getting shot. But it's not a fatal shot or anything like that. I think it was in his arm. I couldn't really tell. He was bleeding a little bit, but it wasn't like a fatal shot. Pull him into the hearse. They drive off, and he's like, I'm fine, whatever. And so they drive off, but while all this was happening, they did show that like somebody in the crowd was recording it on their phone. Which, one of the things that Keyshawn's baby daddy was saying when he didn't want her to go on the tour, he was like, you gonna go out there, you gonna end up getting shot, da-da-da. So I'm just like, if he end up seeing this, that's just gonna, it's not gonna be good. So we're in the locker room of the Pynk. We see the girls in the locker room. They're watching the fight that just happened with Lil Murda and them. They're watching it on social media, so clearly it's already on the internet or whatever. Roulette and Whisper are off to the side. They're just having a conversation with each other. Whisper is just kind of talking to Roulette and asking her, like, where are you from? Why did you start dancing? So they're just kind of having this little conversation with each other. Whisper is so, like, I don't know a good word for her. She's just so like, I don't know how to describe her personality. But as they're standing there having this conversation, she just decides to start snorting some. Maybe that explains her personality. Maybe she's just always high out of her mind. She offers some to Roulette, and Roulette does some too. And I'm just like, all right. Like, Roulette is just, baby girl, like, you was in the paradise room giving sloppy toppy, and now you doing a bump of in the light. Like, you going down a downward spiral at this point, and I'm very concerned. But either way, they're preparing to go on stage. Uncle Clifford is giving the girlies a little pep talk, and Uncle Clifford is like, everybody needs to have a mask on. I don't want to see nobody with their mask off. While they're having this whole conversation, somebody just sneezes out of nowhere. Everybody goes off, and I was laughing so hard because, like, it was literally like that. In the thick of the pandemic, you better not sneeze in no crowd of people. So they go out. Uncle Clifford actually ends up going out on stage, and honey, he working a pole a little bit before the girls come out. And I was like, okay, Uncle Clifford, because I don't think we got Uncle Clifford doing any pole work previously, unless I just am completely spacing out. Child, had been so long since season 1. It's been a whole year. But I don't think Uncle Clifford was on the pole at all during season 1. I don't think, besides maybe just like holding on to it, doing a little twerk. But so I was like, okay, we love to see it. So Uncle Clifford introduces the girl, and then Whisper and Roulette, they do their whole little performance or whatever. And Roulette is just getting really into her performance. The crowd is screaming for her at the end. She's going off on the pole. She's doing acrobatic stuff or whatever. And at the end, she ends up pulling her boobs out, and Uncle Clifford is pissed because they not supposed to show no boobs at the Pynk, okay? And so Uncle Clifford is pissed off. So while all this is happening, Big L is in the back of the building, and Gidget's ex-boyfriend pulls up. As we know from the first season, he's the plug. Him and Big L was working on some distribution stuff. He pulls up in the truck so that he can, him and Big L can do whatever. And he's clearly looks like he's been like crying. He's emotional or whatever. Turns out that he has been like stressed out because Gidget won't talk to him, won't return his calls or nothing like that, because Gidget's mom passed away from COVID, and the boyfriend is the one who gave her mom the COVID. Big L is like, you still crying over her? Like, you need to let that go or whatever. And he's basically like, no, this is about to be my last shipment or whatever. After this, I'ma buy an engagement ring, and I'ma get my woman back, and this, that, and the third. And Big L is like, she don't want to see you. Like, clearly Big L is just trying to make sure that his business, his little side business ain't messed up, And so he's basically like trying to talk some sense into him. So while him and Big L are having this conversation, Whisper and Roulette end up coming outside, and there's some definite like flirtatious energy, like big flirtatious energy between Roulette and Gidget's ex. And I'm just like, dang, you was just crying about Gidget, and all of a sudden you not crying no more. Anyway, so there's some big flirtation energy going on between him and Roulette. At one point, she's like all up in his face, and she's like, oh, you got something in your teeth. She like pulls a knife from her like stirrup or some shit, and like, helps him get something out of his teeth. Like, it's big flirtation energy going on. So I'm like, okay, I could be okay with this being a thing. We don't really know a lot about Gidget's ex, except that he's the plug, and him and Gidget was smashing, but we didn't really get a lot of him in the last season. So I'm like, let's see what happens. So we see Mercedes spraying Terrica's stepmom with the water hose and trying to get her to wake up because she's drunk passed out drunk. So Mercedes is spraying her in the face with the water hose in the tub and going off on her like, how dare you have my daughter out here trying to get you home and you messed up drunk, like I thought you was sober, da da da. And the woman is basically like, I cannot remember her name. What is her name? Shell. Her name is Shell, and I should remember that because I have a cousin named Shell. But anyway, so Shell is just like, you know, I was sober, but after the pandemic and losing my job and da da da, you know, I ended up drinking again, da da da. And Mercedes is just going off. She's like, you got my daughter out here, you know. And you know, I feel like the situation is even worse because of the way that Shell has been so judgmental about Mercedes and being like, you know, no, you can't have your daughter back because you're a horrible role model. You're out here working at the strip club doing da da da. And it's like, but you a whole alcoholic. It's like people be judging, but they be messed up too. So it makes the situation so much more of a layered situation, because it's like you judge this girl so harshly and you was so like adamant about the fact that she shouldn't be raising her own daughter because she's a stripper and she's this and she's that, as if you was so like high and mighty and holier than thou, and you a whole alcoholic. Sloppy drunk, passed out drunk. So I'm just like, people be so judgmental and be having a whole closet full of their old stuff. It's literally just like Mercedes' mom. Like Mercedes' mom is so judgmental about her for being a stripper, but Mercedes' mom is literally like the worst, most grimy person on the show. So anyway, they're having this back and forth, and you know, Mercedes is just like, you know, why did you never let me have her back? You know, every time I tried to get my daughter back, you always said no. I begged you to let me take my daughter back and you always said no. And Shell is basically like, I didn't say no. It wasn't me saying no, it was him. And she's basically talking about her husband who has passed away, who is the married man that Mercedes got pregnant by when she was 15. And she's like, you lied about your age and got pregnant by him, and you think I want to spend the rest of my life raising his mistake and looking at his mistake every single day? And I'm like, damn, like, his mistake, like, this is a young girl that you've been raising since she was a child, and that's how you've been thinking about her this whole time? And she was like, I did this because he asked me, his dying breath was to make sure that you didn't have her and that I took care of her and that you didn't raise her. And I'm just like, that's so grimy to me. Like, it's so grimy to me that it's just like, Mercedes is a stripper. That doesn't make her any less of a capable mother. It doesn't make her, you know what I'm saying? It's very like clear that like they are using that one thing to judge Mercedes so harshly, when it's like, girl, you a whole alcoholic. Mercedes' mama is a whole con artist, blasphemous, thief. Like, it's just like, but they can all still look at Mercedes and say like, but you a stripper though. Ultimately, Shell is just like, you know, I wasted my whole life being loyal to this man who, you know, wasn't even loyal to me when he was walking the earth. And I was like, well, girl, that's on you. Nobody told you to do that. Like, you the fool. But anyway, you know, she just starts like crying and laughing hysterically. It's very weird. It's very creepy. But they pan over to just outside the door, and we see that Terica has been standing there and listening to this whole conversation the whole time. So we back at the Pynk. We see Big Bone is DJing. She doing all right or whatever, but it's a couple of the other strippers over in the cut hating on her from afar. So they clearly are not happy that she just started and she done already moved from, you know, being a bottle girl to being the DJ. So they're definitely big hating on her from in the distance. And then we pan over to another one of the strippers. She's in a section and a dude is literally begging her for a little bit of that sloppy tape. And she's like, no, like, well, I'm not finna do that. And he's like, listen, my homeboy told me it was a girl up in here that was coming with the sloppy toppy. I'm looking for that girl. And I was like, oh, so word is spreading about Roulette, like chewing people down in the Paradise Room. So that's not gonna end well for anybody. So Haley and Uncle Clifford are in the back. Haley ends up getting a text from Andre, just a follow up on Corbin's latest offer, for the Pynk, and she's just like, I ain't saying yes until it's 10 M's. Like, that's the bare minimum that I'm selling the Pynk for. And Uncle Clifford is basically like, you know, you really gonna sell it? Like, what are the girls gonna do, like, if you sell the club or whatever? And Haley is like, you know, why you even care? You know, why are you even concerned about that? Like, 10 M's is 10 M's. And, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, it's easy for Haley to just be like, it's 10 M's. Who cares about what happens to these girls? Because, girl, you just got here like 2 months ago. You know what I'm saying? Like, Uncle Clifford has been with this club forever. So this club is very much a part of Uncle Clifford's life, an important part of Uncle Clifford's life. So it means so much more to Uncle Clifford than it does to Haley, because Haley just got here. It's just like the way Haley talks about it so casually. It's almost as if, like, do you not understand that it's a very different level of sentimental value to Uncle Clifford, because Uncle Clifford been here since the beginning. Like, you don't care because you just got here, so selling the club is nothing to you. I don't know. I don't think Haley understands that. And it's like, girl, just because you don't stay nowhere long, you don't even take your clothes out the suitcase, and you just, you know, a Rolling Stone, wherever you lay your hat is your home. Uncle Clifford's not that way. Uncle Clifford is very much attached to this place. So it just feels a little callous the way she's just like, yeah, we gonna sell it. And it's just like, girl, you know? But at the same time, I'm just like, okay, Uncle Clifford, if they give y'all 10 M's for the Pynk and y'all gonna split that or whatever, just go buy a different location. Just have the Pynk in a different place. Like, you can literally just do that. So anyway, we pan over from that conversation to Andre and Corbin Kyle. They're sitting talking about the situation, and Corbin Kyle is like, you know, asking like, well, you know, what is she saying? And Andre is like, you know, she's still saying that she don't, you know, she ain't gonna move unless it's 10 M's. And Corbin Kyle is like, she is out of her mind. Like, do you think Promised Land Realty will actually do that? And Andre is like, actually, you know, I mean, they got it. I think they would do it if they wanted it bad enough. And so they're sitting there having this conversation about that. And while they're having this conversation, Andre is like, you know, if Promised Land does agree to give 10 M's for the Pynk, then Haley is going to be the most richest, powerful person in Chucalissa. And he's like, even more powerful, you know, than new interim mayor, you know, if he gets elected. And Corbin Kyle makes a comment, and he's like, I mean, you know, who gonna run against him? And Andre is like, shoot, I might. And I was like, I knew it. I called it. And so he's basically like, you know, Corbin has the same question that I had in my last review. And he's like, well, how could you even run? You know, how you gonna win? Are you even from Chucalissa? And so Andre is like, I actually am from Chucalissa. I was born and raised here. And he says that he even registered to vote in Chucalissa so that he could vote for the first Black mayor when his uncle was first running. So my initial question when I first was like, is Andre gonna run for mayor of Chucalissa? I was like, but I don't think he can because he don't live there and da-da-da. But turns out he born and raised there. He's registered to vote there and all that. So I'm like, not my predictions coming true. So as Andre is explaining this, you could tell the gears in Corbin's head start moving, and he's like, wait a minute. So you telling me Mayor Ruffin's nephew comes to take over his spot as mayor? We could have something with that. And so he's basically like, you know, are you serious about this? Because I'll fund it. And here's the thing. Corbin Kyle hates his brothers. So I'm sure just the idea of dethroning his brother Wayne Kyle would be worth it for him. But also the fact that he has that connection to Andre, especially if he's funding the campaign, that's a lot of power to have in Chucalissa. So I feel like Corbin Kyle is like, I can get you into office, fund your campaign. So now I have kind of like a relationship with the person running this, you know, running Chucalissa, and I get to dethrone my brother who I hate. Like, two birds, one stone. So it's giving very much the mayoral race is going to be Wayne Kyle, Andre, and Patrice Woodbine. Those are going to be our 3 mayoral candidates. And I called it. So we back on the Dirty Dozens tour, and we see Lil Murda trying to go into his hotel room after a performance, and there's a whole bunch of women crowding around him. They're trying to follow him into his hotel rooms. Child, the thirst is real. And in order to kind of save him from this, Keyshawn goes up, she fake kisses him, and they go into the room together. And I really love the dynamic between Keyshawn and Lil Murda. I love that they have this like close brother sister bond connection type situation. Like, I just really love that for them. But anyway, they're in the hotel room, they're just chit chatting. Keyshawn is brushing his hair, and he's trying to write out a postcard to send to Uncle Clifford, and he's lost for words, doesn't know what to write. And Keyshawn is basically just like, you a rapper, you a lyricist, like you know how to use words and make words pretty, like just write what's on your heart, just write out your thoughts. And so Lil Murda ends up writing on the postcard, "I love you," and Keyshawn is like, "That's it? That's all you got?" And then Lil Murda is like, "That's the only thought." Oh my God. Like, it was such a cute moment. Keyshawn is like, let's send this off now or whatever. And as they're kind of like wrestling with each other, play wrestling with each other, while Lil Murda is trying to get the postcard back from Keyshawn, and Big Teak ends up knocking on the door, and he's like, "Hey, let's run out to the store." And so Lil Murda goes out to the store with him. Now, I forgot to mention that when all the girls was crowding around Lil Murda's door, and then Keyshawn came up and kissed him and they went inside, Rome was off in the cut looking out his hotel room, and so he's seen all that pan out, so he was side-eyeing it. Because listen, it is very clear that Lil Rome is like has feelings for Keyshawn. It was clear in the first season. Like, he showed up to the Pynk to talk about managing Lil Murda and was immediately swept away by Keyshawn. Like, he was mesmerized with her from that very first day. And so you can see, like, anytime he just looks at her, anytime he interacts with her, like, he is clearly 100% mesmerized by her. So when he was like side-eyeing that, I feel like part of it was him side-eyeing it in jealousy, like seeing Keyshawn kiss on Lil Murda and go in the room with him when he wishes that was him because he's feeling Keyshawn. But then also him side-eyeing it based on what, shady backseat dude has been kind of putting out there about Lil Murda's sexuality. So I feel like Rome is side-eyeing it on both fronts. Like, he kind of like feels like something is up. Maybe what shady backseat dude was saying has some realness to it, because Lil Murda ain't messing with none of the women on this tour. But then also like jealousy because Keyshawn was kissing him. So I don't trust Rome, partly because he's a crackhead, but also he just gives me shady, grimy vibes a little bit. So we're gonna see how that all ends up panning out. Low key, I feel like it is very possible that here I go with another prediction. My predictions becoming true. But I feel like it's very possible that Rome might do some shady shit to Lil Murda in order to either like push him away from Keyshawn, and then also to prop Keyshawn up because that's his client. He wants her to be successful. He don't really care about Lil Murda. So I feel like it's very possible that Rome might end up doing some shady, grimy shit to Lil Murda in order to like weasel his way in the door with Keyshawn, and also like prop Keyshawn up higher and screw Lil Murda over in the process. And I feel like that shady backseat dude might have something to do with it. I would not be surprised if Rome like hits that dude up and is like, "Now what was you saying about, Lil Murda's sexuality?" Like, I would not be surprised if that happens. So Mercedes is in the kitchen making some food for her daughter Terica, and this is when Terica lets it be known that she heard the whole conversation between Mercedes and Shell, and she's like, is it true what she was saying? You know, is it true that you was only 15 and that, you know, my dad was much older and you lied about your age and all this stuff? And so Mercedes is just being very open with her about what happened, and she's like, you know, I was 15, my mom had to do what my mom said. I was a kid, you know, she made me give you, you know, to your dad and his wife, and I didn't have a say in the matter because I was a child. And so basically Terica is like, okay, yeah, but you wasn't a child forever though. Like, you know, at some point you became an adult. Like, why didn't you get me back then? And Mercedes is just kind of like, you know, well, by then, you know, I started dancing, I was this, and Terica is just like, you know, it's always an excuse with you. Like, why is it always an excuse? And I get it from both sides of it. I understand from Mercedes' perspective, like, we have to consider who her mom is. And looking at every time Mercedes' mom interacts with her, it's very like demeaning and very degrading. Like, she wants to make her feel like she's nothing and she can't be more and she can't be better. And that kind of stuff like takes a toll on you mentally and psychologically. So I can imagine, like, from 15, like, if you grew up with that woman as a mother, like, you probably did not feel like you could raise your child correctly. And then in addition to that, you got Shell, you know, making you feel like you're not capable either. You know, it just, there's so much that goes into it. But then I also understand it from Terica's perspective, because it's just like, she's just a kid who wanted the love of her mother and didn't feel like she got it sufficiently. And so she's hurt. So I get it from both sides, but I really do hope that Mercedes and her daughter can get to like a better place throughout this season. So Lil Murda and Big Teak have come back from the store, and they're sitting on the steps of the motel and they're just talking or whatever. Lil Murda is like, you know, you gonna have to chill, like, we don't want to start a war or nothing like that. And they're just kind of like reminiscing on when they were in jail together. Big Teak tells a story about how like they had gotten to a situation with somebody in the jail, and he ended up having to save Lil Murda's life from this dude, and then the dude end up getting killed, and they kind of allude to the fact that it was Big Teak that took him out. And he's just like, you know, he had to go to the hole after that, and he was like, I was in there for so long, it was such a dark time, and he was like, the only thing that kind of kept me, you know, going and gave me hope was I guess Lil Murda was writing like raps or lyrics or whatever, and writing them on tissue paper and sliding them under the door to him while he was in the hole. And Big Teak is like, that's the only thing that kept him going. It was a very tender and sentimental moment between them, and it just really showed that like they're clearly like they're down for each other. Like, Big Teak is like, I'm gonna go to war for you, period. It did make me wonder though, like, what was the extent of their relationship when they were in prison together? Because I mean, we already know that Lil Murda has interests, you know, in men. So I wonder if their prison relationship was more so than just we cool and we have each other's back. Like, I wonder, did it go further than that? Because this moment between them, it felt very, very tender and sentimental. And it could just be on some I love my bro type stuff. But I just wonder. So Pastor Woodbine is in the back room of her church when in comes interim mayor Wayne Kyle with the sheriff, and they're giving her a citation for having church service in the church, and that's a violation of COVID protocols or whatever. Clearly Wayne Kyle is just messing with her because of her, you know, given that whole speech against, you know, for the referendum or whatever. So this is like a little payback type of situation. And so they have a little back and forth about it. Pastor Woodbine was like, oh, so you gonna stop the saints from clapping in the Lord's house, but you ain't gonna stop them cheeks from clapping down at the Pynk. I was dying. But anyway, they end up having this whole little back and forth, and Pastor Patrice Woodbine is basically just like, oh, you messed with the wrong bitch. And, you know, again, I feel very strongly that Patrice Woodbine is going to be running against him in the mayoral race. And I feel like this was probably one more reason for her to just want to take him down. And I feel like her running for mayor against him is going to be part of her plan to do that. So Uncle Clifford is in their room reading a postcard from Lil Murda, and it's like, I think it said like, you look beautiful in red or something like that. And then Uncle Clifford goes and sits at their vanity, and then we pan up to the vanity and we see that there's a postcard from each of the stops on the Dirty Dozens tour. So basically, Lil Murda has been at every stop on the tour getting a postcard and sending it to Uncle Clifford with something sweet on there. And I'm just like, and Uncle Clifford was just a cheesing. And I'm just like, girl, forgive him. Forgive him for I forgive him for you. I've already forgiven him. Okay? Uncle Clifford, get it, fall in line. So in the last scene of this episode, we see Big L and Gidget's ex-boyfriend. I do not know his name. I don't know if they've given us a name for him. But anyway, we see Big L and Gidget's ex-boyfriend unloading a truck or whatever, and while they're doing this, a car pulls up and Roulette gets out, and child, she looks high as a kite and tired, and she's just like, let me know when you want to take Roulette on another spin, as she gets out the car. And I'm just like, so you hoeing. In the first scene, when she was slopping dude up in the Paradise Room, I'm thinking maybe this was like she just decided in this moment to do this because the money was right. But I'm like, oh, so you do this. Like, this is you. So you're not new to this, you true to this. So I'm just like, okay, sis. But she gets out the car, and as the car drives away, she kind of like makes eye contact with Gidget's ex a little bit, and she looks a little like regretful. You know, I don't know if it was like regretful or if it was like embarrassment because the dude that she's having this flirtation with sees her getting out of this dude's car. You know, there was just a look on her face. It was either like regret or embarrassment or something, but either way, you know, she looks at him and she ends up, you know, giving a little smirk and a little wink. And so I'm like, okay, we gonna see where this goes, you know. But I don't like the fact that Roulette is just out here prostituting herself. I don't like that. And listen, this is no shade, like no shade against sex workers, but I'm just concerned. Like, I'm worried about her because it's just like, you know, like, I mean, prostitution is not legal. So it's like you're doing it in the Paradise Room, which is against the rules of the Pynk. And then it's just like, you just have to be very careful. Like, cause it's not legal. You don't want to like get yourself in a position where you're like in trouble with the law because of this. So I'm worried about her. I feel like this is not going to end well for her, but either way, in the preview for the next episode, it does look like it's kind of like the rumors are kind of getting around the Pynk that she's, you know, doing a little something else on the side, you know, not just working the pole in the strip club, but working other poles too. So I hate that for her, but we gonna see what happens with that. But yeah, that was episode 3. Really good. Let me know what y'all think. Let me know what y'all's predictions are. Do y'all agree with my prediction that the mayoral candidates is going to be Patrice Woodbine, Andre, and Wayne Kyle? And then also, if that does end up happening, who y'all think is going to win? Because low-key, I think Patrice Woodbine would win. So we gonna see how that all pans out. Let me know y'all predictions on that. And yeah, I'll be here next week for episode 4. Thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe and get in the comments and let me know your thoughts. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.